You wake up and there's no text, no plans, no distractions, just you silence. That's when it hits you, the fear, the pressure, the ache to be needed by someone. That's the moment most men run. But what if I told you, this silence is the beginning of something unstoppable? Men are taught that solitude is failure, that being single means you're behind that. If no one's choosing you, you must be doing something wrong. But that's a lie. The truth is, the man who embraces solitude becomes the most powerful version of himself. The man who walks alone by choice is building something deeper than anyone can see. This video isn't for everyone. It's for men ready to stop chasing attention, stop begging for connection, and start becoming someone that can't be ignored. This is for the man who wants control, clarity, and complete command of his life. If you're that man, stay with me in a world that celebrates noise. The man who chooses silence stands out in a world obsessed with instant gratification. The man who waits, sharpens, and disciplines himself becomes elite. This isn't about isolation. This isn't about running from people. It's about returning to yourself. Too many men jump from woman to woman, job to job, friend group to friend group, chasing approval, hoping someone validates their worth. But they never stop to ask, what happens if I stop chasing and just sit with myself? What happens is transformation. And today I'll show you how solitude reshapes everything from your mind, your focus, your standards, and your presence. When you stop needing others to see your value, they start noticing you without effort. The fear of silence. Silence is the most terrifying sound for many men. It doesn't scream, it doesn't judge, it doesn't threaten, but it reveals everything. The moment the world goes quiet and the notifications stop and there's no one next to you. In the bed, the real battle begins because now there's nothing left to distract you. There's no one to entertain, no drama to respond to, no conversation to hide in. It's just you, face to face with your own thoughts. And for most men, that's a horror show. They've been running from their whole life. You sit there and thoughts you buried start to rise. The regrets, the shame, the voices telling you you're not enough. The fear that no one will ever really love you. The truth about what you've been pretending doesn't bother you. That girl who ghosted you. That job you never applied for that version of yourself. You promised you'd become but never did. It all comes rushing in. This is why men jump from one relationship to another. This is why they keep chasing something, anything that keeps them distracted. It's not about the girl, it's not about the likes or attention. It's about not having to sit in that silence and ask the real questions. Who am I? What do I stand for? Am I proud of the man I've become? Most men never ask those questions because they already know the answer and they don't like it. But this is where the real growth starts. Not in the gym, not in the clubs, not in motivational podcasts. Growth begins the moment you stop running from silence and decide to face it head on. You sit there uncomfortable, you let the pain rise, you let the self-doubt echo, you feel the void, and you refuse to fill it with cheap distractions that takes more courage than chasing approval ever will. Because in that silence, something powerful happens. First, your mind fights back. It throws every memory and insecurity at you, begging for escape. But if you stay with it, if you stay calm, something shifts. Your mind begins to quiet. The noise fades, and underneath all the chaos, you find clarity. You realize you're still standing. You realize that those thoughts don't define you. They just visit you. You are not your insecurities. You are not your past. You are not the judgment you think others are making. You are the man who stayed, the man who faced his own darkness and didn't run. That's rare. That's real approval. Detox, most men are addicts and they don't even know it. Not to drugs, not to alcohol, but to something just as dangerous, approval. They wake up and check their phone. Did she text back? Did anyone like that? Posted? Someone notice me? It sounds harmless, but it's not. It's dependency, it's a trap, and it's stealing your strength. Approval, seeking is invisible. It hides behind politeness, behind overthinking, behind fake smiles, and constant yes. When you mean no, you start shaping your entire life around what other people might think. You say the right things to avoid conflict. You hold back your real thoughts to fit in. You tolerate behavior. You hate just to be liked. And slowly you forget who you are. Approval makes you weak because it makes your self-worth dependent on someone else's reaction. You become scared of being disliked, misunderstood, ignored. So you try to please everyone and you end up respected by no one. But here's the truth. Real power begins when you let that go. Imagine waking up and not needing anyone's permission to feel confident. Imagine saying what you believe without flinching. Walking away from people who take more than they give. Being alone without panic because you know you're enough without constant reassurance. That's what happens when you detox from approval. You stop texting back instantly just to seem interested. You stop reshaping your values just to keep people comfortable. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You begin to filter people based on your standards, not based on whether they approve of you and what happens. People start noticing you. But this time, it's not because you're trying to impress them. It's because you're too focused on something far more important. Your self-respect, women sense it, friends sense it, strangers sense it, they feel it when you're not trying to get picked, because you've already chosen yourself. That kind of energy is rare and it's magnetic. You see, most men try to be liked, but the men who are admired, the men who are remembered, are the ones who stop trying. Not because they're arrogant, but because they're grounded, clear-centered. They know what they stand for. And if someone doesn't like it, that's fine, because they're not bending approval. Detox is brutal at first. You feel the withdrawal. You want to explain yourself. You want to be understood. You want everyone to agree with your decisions. But that feeling fades. And what replaces it is peace, freedom, confidence without performance. You become the man who walks into a room and doesn't try to be seen, but ends up being the only one people remember. You speak less, but everything you say matters more. You move with a calm certainty, and in a world full of loud noise and fake strength, that quiet self-respect stands out like thunder. This isn't about disrespect, it's about alignment. You don't disrespect others, you just don't allow them to control your emotional state. You don't need to be loud, you don't need to prove, you don't need validation because you already validated yourself. The men who changed the world are not the ones who are liked by everyone. They're the ones who stayed true to themselves, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it was unpopular. So ask yourself, are you living in a way that makes people like you? Or are you living in a way that makes you proud if you want to step into your highest potential? This is the first step. Stop chasing approval. Stop seeking attention. Stop trying to be chosen. Become the man who chooses himself again and again until no one else's opinion holds more power than your own. That's when you stop needing respect and start commanding it. Clarity through solitude. There's a moment in every man's life where the fog lifts, but it doesn't happen in the noise. It happens in the quiet. In solitude, that's where clarity is born. You don't realize how much of your thinking isn't yours until everything else fades away. Friends, social media, expectations, other people's opinions, they all drown out your voice, and when you finally step back and give yourself space to breathe, you start hearing something you haven't heard in a long time. Your own mind, that's when you remember what you really want, not what you were told to want, not what society said you should chase, but what sets your soul on fire. Maybe it's freedom, maybe it's discipline, maybe it's a legacy. No one understands but you in solitude. That becomes clear. It's like wiping the mirror clean, and for the first time seeing yourself, Not the version others expect, but the one that's real. In the noise, you're reactive, you're scattered, you're constantly adjusting, responding, adapting to stay liked, accepted, validated. But in solitude, you stop reacting. You start observing, and then you start deciding, what kind of energy do I allow into my life? Who drains me and who builds me? What habits serve me and which ones steal my strength? Where have I been lying to myself just to feel safe? Solitude is the only place where you can answer those questions without influence. You strip back the noise, and what's left is the truth. Maybe painful, maybe uncomfortable, but real. And once you've tasted that level of honesty, you can't go back to pretending that's where real standards come from. Not from anger or ego, but from clarity. You stop tolerating mediocrity, not because you're trying to prove something, but because it simply doesn't fit your life anymore. You start saying no more often. You stop apologizing for needing space. You begin cutting ties with people who no longer align with your direction, not out of bitterness, but out of precision. Because solitude doesn't just clear your head, it sharpens your focus. You become deliberate, you wake up with intention. Your actions align with your goals. Your environment reflects your values. You don't waste time explaining your choices to people who will never understand them why, because you're not living for them anymore when you've spent enough time. Alone, your priorities change. Drama feels like noise, toxic. People become obvious. Temporary pleasures lose their grip, and what you start craving instead is peace, purpose, progress. That's the shift. That's clarity. And here's what's powerful. Once you've built that clarity, you become hard to influence. People can't manipulate you with guilt, attention, or flattery. You're not chasing approval. You're following direction, your vision. And nothing is stronger than a man who knows where he's going and doesn't care who doubts him. You walk differently, you speak differently, you say less, but what you say hits harder. Because when a man knows who he is and what he's building, he doesn't have to explain it. He just lives it. That's the gift of solitude. It burns away everything that isn't essential. And what's left is a man of purpose, peace, and unstoppable clarity. So if your world feels quiet right now, don't rush to fill it. Stay there, sit with it, listen. That silence, it's your life speaking to you. And if you're wise enough to hear it, it will change everything. You don't need more attention. You don't need more followers, more texts, more dates. You need more of you, more silence, more stillness, more moments where you return to your center and remember who you are. The man who walks alone isn't lost. He's refining, he's evolving, he's becoming someone the world won't recognize because he doesn't look like someone who needs anything. He moves like someone who's chosen himself. And when you reach that point, something incredible happens. You don't chase life. Life aligns with you. The right people appear, the wrong ones fall away. Opportunities flow, not because you force them, but because your energy becomes undeniable. If this spoke to your soul, don't just nod and scroll. Take action, subscribe, comment, share this with a brother who needs to hear it. We're building a space for men to rise, not through anger, not through ego, but through truth and clarity.